Hi guys and welcome to episode 17 of Beat to the Punch. I'm joined on the line all the way from Finland by Riku. Hi killer, am I getting any better at saying the second name?
Yeah, more or less. You're nearly there. You half native and finished already.
So how's the trip home going anyway?
Yeah, good. Always nice to see everyone. And despite people thinking this is the Arctic Pole, it's been around 15 degrees up to 20 degrees this week. So had some good weather. Yeah, it's good. Nice as always.
Yeah, well we just had our Scottish summer on the bank holiday weekend there, and as I look out my window right now, it is thunder and lightning. So I think you missed maybe 2 days of good weather, and now it's absolutely horrendous again. So you're not missing
Yeah,
that.
I saw on the bank holiday weekend in London where there's good weather, so I think that's summer done for the year. So that's my chances of using the barbecue over.
Yeah, that's it. But let's just start off. We always start off with the reviews of the weekend just past. So we'll start off with the Matchroom card. We'll start off with the main event in that Matchroom card, and it was Dave Allen versus Lucas Brown. Now I know you're away, but did you get to see any of this card?
Yeah, I did see the card. Thank God for streaming. I did manage to see the card, and yeah, I was from the main event. I mean, I was really happy for Dave Allen. He's a lovely guy. Met him a few times, spent some time with him, so always have a soft spot for him. I think the first two rounds, he was typical Dave Allen in the sense that because he fights at a slow pace, it means that when everybody else comes out steamrolling, trying to throw punches, he doesn't look that good. He was a great body shot, but I think he was doing a few good moves already before that, and just him being in shape and turning up, he's fighting at the maximum of his abilities. So yeah, it was just great to see as a result, and it's a good feel good story for British boxing. I know some people don't think he deserves the shots and stuff, but boxing isn't a meritocracy. I mean, it's not about who's the best fighter. A lot of it's about his personality as well. So great results for him. So I was really happy. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy the card, but I thought the main event, I mean, that shot to finish it was beautiful. I thought the way he set it up, it was very, it was a great shot for a highlight reel. You could, it was a
Yeah,
punch that worthy of fighting, winning any fight, sorry. But, I thought early on, Lucas Brown was, Dave Allen's got this habit of stomping punches kind of with his forehead. Do you know what I mean? And it
yeah,
was, and you were sitting thinking, oh, it's not going to be one of these fights. And George Groves made a great point on commentary, saying that Dave has to be careful not to fall into that sparring partner, that kind of
yeah,
mentality.
exactly.
And I thought that was a great point because that's the way it looked as if it was going. But all credit to Dave because, I mean, he pulled that one really out of the bag and it was a great finish, a superb stoppage. And I mean, I think everybody is happy for Dave, but it just kind of shows you the power of being popular, the power of social media once more. Dave Allen just headlined a show at the O2, and I mean that's pretty
Yeah,
much just because he's a nice guy and he converses with people on Twitter. And I would never decry anybody that.
yeah, agreed. And also, it does show the standard of where we are at the moment in terms of Sky cards in the UK. The other option was having Chisora Gashi headlining, which was a horrible fight to watch. But I think it's about numbers as well because Dave Allen will draw a lot more numbers in than someone like Cordine or Josh Kelly. A lot of casual fans will want to watch it. And the reality is, as much as hardcore boxing fans feel like we have the right to dictate what goes on in the sport, Sky subscribers are predominantly casuals, and they will be the ones that will be watching Dave Allen. So it's really much the business side as well. But where do you think Dave goes next?
I think there is only one road that Dave Allen can take, and that's to David Price. I think it's a fight that makes sense. And do you know what? It's a good fight because I think that both of them are kind of in the same position. Once they start looking above, you start thinking to yourself, well, they're not really going to beat anybody. Kind of like, they're kind of at their ceiling. And I think it'd be a great fight for both of them. You know what I mean? That's a headline fight. That's a fight I would be interested in. Where do you
Yeah,
think he goes for here?
Yeah, I thought the same as I mean, David Price is the obvious one because his name value in the UK. So if he beats David Price, then people will be a lot more sort of think that actually he's beaten a few good opponents. He's beaten David Price and he's beaten a former quote unquote world champion in Lucas Brown. The other one I was thinking was Hellenius, the Finnish heavyweight. I asked him yesterday on Twitter and he responded that he isn't fighting him because in the Finnish media there was news that Hellenius has signed to fight someone in the summer, a named opponent abroad. So I thought that would make sense, that maybe they would drag him and then they could say, this is a guy that has beat, a guy that Chisora fought and Dillian Whyte fought, so they could have hyped it up that way. But yeah, I think David Price is the most logical option for Dave Allen next.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, do we think that Dave Allen is improving as a fighter as he's been on? Has Dave Allen improved since like the Dillian Whyte fight? You say?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. One is that Dave Allen was the guy that took fights at short notice. So Dillian Whyte was short notice. Ortiz was relatively short notice. Yoka was short notice. And he didn't take the sport seriously back then. So this is the first camp where he's taken the sport seriously. So I think he's probably improved just by taking the sport seriously rather than anything else.
Yeah, that's actual improving his fitness, his baseline fitness, that'll bring his skills to the forefront, you're giving yourself a fighting chance really there, especially at heavyweight, because a lot of the heavyweight fighters, don't want to take it away from them, but a lot of them are slobs, a lot of them you can tell don't live the life of a fighter, so I think if you go in there with an engine that can last 12 rounds, you're giving yourself a hell of a good chance against most of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. The hard bit for him is, though, after David Price fight, where does he go? Because after that, you're stepping up a big kind of step, whether you fight against someone like Briziel or, Hergovich or a Joe Joyce Dubois winner or even someone like Ortiz again or Pulev. Or these are guys that are a lot better than that sort of British level of fighter, and that's sort of where we'll actually see how good he is. So I think it will be important for Matchroom and him to ensure that they get him a big fight where he can make a lot of money regardless of the outcome. Because I'd be surprised if he could beat one of these guys like Pulev or Parker or these guys.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I also agree with something else that you say is that Dave Allen wasn't living the life before and now he is. And you can kind of tell that right away as soon as you look at him. But there was an article I wrote maybe about 6 months ago now. I wrote an article about this because, he wasn't living the life. He was coming in out of shape, but we went to the New Age Boxing Pods live
I
show.
Was there as well. Yeah,
and I met Dave Allen in the kebab shop after it, the night before he was fighting.
Yeah, I remember.
So I kind of wrote an article just saying that it just proved in boxing you better to be good and you better to be popular, because look at the chances Dave Allen's got and he's not been taking it seriously. Now, Dave Allen saw this and, he took offence to it. And I mean, as he would, there's a criticism, but, I've got a freedom to write what I want and he's got a freedom to be offended by it or what have you. But, I still stand by that. Do you think that it's better to be popular in boxing or is it better to be good?
I think you have to be, to an extent, you have to be good. To get to level where he is, he's relatively good. He's sparred against Hellenius in Finland. He's been in the Klitschko camp. He's sparred Tyson Fury. He's sparred Joshua. He's sparred lots of Dubois, lots of top guys. So in order to get to that stage where you can spar these guys, you have to be relatively good, at least at sparring partner level. But I think when you aren't an Olympian or when you aren't a guy that has a good amateur pedigree, which Dave doesn't have, the challenge is how do you differentiate yourself and get away from that small hall scene? Yeah. I know, for example, Dennis Hobson signed Dave Allen when he started his career, and then it's sort of through luck and personality which has got him to the next stage. But on that card, there's lots of guys that were a lot more talented than Dave Allen. So someone like Cordina, it was only a year ago when he was a floater on a AJ card in Cardiff in his hometown, and he didn't even get to fight there. So you are right. I mean, if you're a popular fighter and you're a big ticket seller, then it's probably, the economics of boxing dictate that it's better to be popular once you are a certain level rather than to be really good.
Yeah. That's a good answer, mate. That's a good answer. Lucas Brown. Now, Lucas Brown is, I don't know if he's clean now, if it's due to him being clean or what, but he's been in a bit of a decline now for the last couple of years. That's got to be him finished now, isn't it?
Yeah, at that level, certainly. I mean, he might fight against a few tomato cans in Australia, but he, he obviously got done for, drugs a few times. He got dropped in his last fight against Kamil Sokolovsky. Uh, I don't think he's ever been technically very good either. So I think he's one of those guys that he's had a lot of power, maybe because of the drugs he's taken, maybe just because of his style. And he's got quite a padded record. And that's not a knock at Dave Allen, for beating him. His biggest win is really beating Ruslan Chagaev in Russia.
Yeah.
But aside from that, he hasn't really beaten anyone, has he?
No, but that fight in Russia, I mean, I watched that fight when I was doing a preview before because I hadn't really watched Lucas Brown fight, and I watched that fight, and it was like one of them nights where everything just seemed to click for him. His footwork and his timing just seemed to be spot on, and I goes like, this guy's really good. This guy's like, why have I not heard of this guy before? Do you know what I mean? And I think I might have just watched like the one fight, the one great night that he had,
Yeah, but I imagine there wasn't much drugs testing in Russia either, so everything worked in his favour, and he was just one of those guys. And he's 40 years old. I mean, how long can he actually keep going?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we've talked that one to death, so let's move on to the fight, the most infuriating fight that I've ever seen. And it has to be Josh Kelly, and he was fighting a tomato can for Poland, and I'm going to try and pronounce his name, Prelizmiso Rumzikov or something like that. I can't even say the guy's
or something like that.
Yeah, but the showboating, the showboating I found absolutely infuriating and so off-putting. What did you think of Josh Kelly's performance and his antics in the ring?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy the showboating because he's not Roy Jones in a world title fight. But I've said this before a few times. My problem with Josh Kelly is the way he fights. You can't learn those bad habits where you fight with your hands down and your chin up at this level when you're coming up. Because in the welterweight division, as deep as it is, even if he was to fight against, one of these Mexican guys like a Josecito Lopez or one of these guys, you can't get away with that kind of fighting. So I don't really know what Adam Booth is trying to do with him in the gym, because how it looks in the ring is he doesn't have the power to stop these guys. He's showboating and he's doing stuff like the fundamentals. I wouldn't call that they wrong, the fundamentals of boxing, what he's doing, but it just doesn't bode well to take that style to a world level and to do that stuff, because he should be taking these guys out. There's no excuse for him. They're there to be taken out. That's what they've been flown over for.
Yeah, well, that is I actually tweeted that out about the sixth round, because the Polish lad, he was starting to have a bit of joy, and Josh Kelly seemed to be slowing down. And I tweeted out that Josh Kelly must now be shitting himself, because all that showboating, and this guy now looks like he's going to see the end of the fight. Now, you think of that showboating and you go like, you should be getting this guy out of there. Now, you've put all this pressure on yourself and you've not got him out of there. Now people are laughing at you. That showboating has worked in reverse, because you were showing that you were levels above this guy, and yet he survived. And I thought that the showboating stuff, it really turned me against him. And from what I could tell from Twitter, it turned a lot of people against him. I mean, he was showboating on the outside. He was showboating when he was out of range. Crazy times. It wasn't entertaining. It kind of felt like bullying.
I agree.
That's the way it felt for me. I found it very infuriating. But How did you feel when Josh Kelly was kind of regaining and stepping up the pace, getting into the last couple of rounds? Because I know that I was really wanting the Polish lad to survive, just so I could laugh at Kelly, but he kind of upped the
Yeah.
pace, and I just wanted to see, where did you fall? Did you want him to get the lad out of there, or did you start becoming a supporter of the Polish boy?
Yeah, I did. It's like watching someone being bullied and you just want them to at least survive the beating or knock the guy out. Josh Kelly's going to be one of those guys. He might showboat against someone, he might get sparked out. But again, he's 9-0 at the moment. And these guys that he's fighting, like, where is he going? What are they trying to do? They talk him up as this guy that's going to go, win a world title, a guy that's going to be, challenging for a world title the next 12 months. These fights do nothing for his career, and the opponents that they've got don't develop him. If he can get away with showboating against opponents, these aren't tough fights. When he gets to European level, if he was to fight against one of these European level guys, the guy that Frankie Gavin fought against, the
monster.
Exactly. Although he lost recently, but if he was going to fight against someone like that, that would teach him something. But I just don't understand, why do you need showboats and why do you need to behave that way? It just doesn't look good for the television. It doesn't look good for him as well.
No, I mean, I don't mind showboating. I don't mind it. I love Floyd, and I don't really, I don't mind it. But you showboat when you're in a fair fight. You showboat when you're in an even fight, when you've got a bit of competition. You don't showboat. I mean, that's like Leo Messi, showboating in a friendly against Accrington Stanley. Right, we know that you're better than him, so you kind of have a bit of respect for yourself and your opponent and the sport, and just go and do your job. Would anybody be bragging about Leo Messi because he could nutmeg somebody that played for Accrington Stanley?
No.
And that's the way I seen it. It was the levels. He was emphasising how big a level there was, and then he emphasised it to the point of like, oh, I've not got this guy out of there. That's the way I seen it. He put a lot of unnecessary pressure on himself.
Exactly, and some of the showboats are great, like Billy Joe Saunders looking outside of the ring when Lemieux threw the punch, or remember when Mayweather fought against Canelo and Canelo hit the ropes when Mayweather was on the ropes and Mayweather looked at the ropes. I mean, those are like great bits of showboating, but as you said, these were at a world level. These are world title fights. I mean, you don't see guys like Shakur Stevenson showboating, in between a fight and repetitively as well. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's definitely it. And this is a thing that we spoke about. I'm sure we spoke about it in the last podcast, but Josh Kelly's another one of these guys with a fake ranking. I'm sure he's ranked the top 10 with the WBA. Am I right in that, or am I picked that up wrong?
He probably is. I mean, Conor Ben's probably number 5, isn't he?
And I'm sure Josh Kelly tweeted out last week that he complaining that Conor Ben was above him in the rankings. And I was sitting thinking to myself, like, what world do you boys living in? Let's just say a guy we've got to talk about later on, Granados. I would pick Granados to beat the two of them probably in the same night. Somebody at that level. Somebody that's mixed at that level. These guys really shouldn't be ranked. And that ranking, I think it's a hindrance for any of the young boxers out there, man. I just don't think that... Do not put any value or any stock in that ranking, because now look at like guys like Josh Kelly, they'll probably just try and edge him up the rankings, but he'll not be learning, he'll not be in fights where he's been tested, because now he's got something to kind of hold on to. Do you know what I mean with that?
Yeah, and the welterweight division is one of the deepest divisions in boxing, so once you're in there with among the likes of, let's say, Thurmans, Porters, Garcia's, not even your Spence or Crawford level, there's no going back. So you can't rush them and they can't skip that European level. I think they just have to be at the level where they are confident enough, like Kell Brook was, they can go to the US and beat Sean Porter in his backyard, because, otherwise none of the US promoters are going to send their welterweight fighters to the UK. So if they want a title, they're going to have to go abroad to get that title. And you're going to be fighting against supremely, skilled amateur fighters that have great amateur pedigree, and world title, world champions that have fought against the best in the division.
I'm getting the feeling with guys like Conor Benn and Josh Kelly that the guys that are handling them kind of know that there's a ceiling there. And I think what they're trying to do is this thing that Matchroom were so successful in doing a couple of years ago. And it's that they're trying to wait till the right people either have a title or get them high enough in the rankings so when a title becomes vacant, they can then kind of pick it up through the back door and then protect it. We had a few champions like this a few years ago, and I think that they're kind of just trying to manoeuvre guys like Ben and Kelly into these positions so that, when a title does become vacant, they could probably end up edging into it and getting into, no having to beat a champion to become world champion is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. Or then it's just sending them to US to fight against someone else. It's like there's been talk about Devin Haney, the US, the highly touted US prospect, self-promoted guy, signing with DAZN. So it might be that at some point they'll put Devin Haney against Josh Kelly fights where it's a win-win for vacant title, where both of them, where DAZN and Matchroom will win in the end, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah. I actually seen earlier on that Josh Kelly's he's fighting in Madison Square Garden on a show. Is it next month or in June? It'll be the Anthony Joshua undercard actually. Thinking
Probably
about
will
it.
be, yeah.
Yeah, I was just checking his box record just before we come on, and he's fighting on that against that well-known opponent TBA. So
Yeah.
So let's see how the Americans like his showboating.
I doubt it.
Yeah, man, that's one thing about the American fans is they don't hold back.
No.
They've no, they want to be entertained. If not, then you'll know about it. But I wasn't even going to talk about this next fight. It was Derek Chisora against, I can't even remember who he was fighting, but it was one of the worst fights I've ever seen, and I didn't think it deserved any airtime. But if you want to say anything about it, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the fight, the only question I have is what has Dave Caldwell brought to him as a trainer? I mean, we probably saw one of the worst Chisora performances in quite a few years. He wasn't being able to cut the ring off. He looked really heavy, sluggish. Maybe there's not much left, but I question whether that move was a sensible one because Don Charles is a good trainer. They worked together for a long time. So, yeah, that's the only thing I really want to say about that because, it was a horrible performance and it wasn't a very good fight and it didn't do anything for Chisora's stock.
Yeah, I actually thought when I was watching it that whoever was the matchmaker for that fight really has to be disciplined because somebody that can be on their toes and mobile and totally disengage for the fight is always just going to make Derek Chisora look terrible. Unless you're going to stand there and trade with Derek Chisora, there's no really anything he can do. Do you know what I mean by that? Garcia gave it a go for a couple of rounds, realised he's too small, and he just ran the rest of the fight. And Derek Chisora is just not capable of cutting the ring off.
No.
But as I said, I didn't really want to talk about that. But a wee fighter that I like, Joe Cordina, he was fighting Andy Townsend for the British title and the Commonwealth title. I thought Cordina he looked good, but I also thought that Andy Townsend looked totally lost in there. What did you think of this fight? Yeah, what did you think when you were watching this?
I thought Cordina looked good, but I've always thought he's a very good boxer and he's probably underrated. He's flown under the radar compared to the likes of Josh Kelly and the other, batch of amateurs that came from the 26 Olympics. I think, and Townend didn't look as good as he should have looked because there's been a lot of talk, particularly up north, about his power and, what a danger man he is. Maybe, it was a step too far for Townend. I think Cordina's the type of guy that you can probably step him up levels and he'll do quite well, and then we'll see where he gets to world level. But I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be, challenging for a world title in 18 to 24 months time.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is with Joe Cardina that I like about him is that Joe Cardina's done what you're supposed to do. He's flew under the radar. As you said, he was a float on an AJ card. And I remember that they were down ringside talking while Joe Cardina was fighting in the ring in front of his home fans. Do you know what I mean? And I was sitting there going, like, he's not even on Sky, he's not got that added pressure, kind of learning his trade away, not learning his trade, perfecting his trade. Like seeing different opponents, and I think Cardina looks better every time we see him now. I mean, he beat Sean Masher Dodd. Now, Sean Dodd took up boxing late in life. He's a lovable guy. I've interviewed Sean Dodd. He's a great guy, great character. But Sean Dodd, is one thing Sean Dodd will make today is he'll make you work every second, every round. And I thought Joe Cardina done well against Sean Dodd. He wasn't he stood up to the physical battle that Sean Dodd brings. And he learnt that there that night. Now you look at the kind of opponents that Josh Kelly's facing, and he's not learning, but he's beating up taxi drivers with 40 left hooks. He's learning nothing for that fight. Whereas you look at Joe Cardina, he's been stepped up and progressed in the right way, and I think that's why Joe Cardina will go on and do big things in this sport.
Yeah, it's a good division to build fighters because you've got lots of guys like Hatley who fought against Teofimo Lopez. You've got British guys like Tommy Coyle. Even Anthony Crawler, if he still wants to continue, I hope not. There's lots of guys that can fight at British level and have big fights and develop without having to go to world level straight away.
Oh, you've even got Ricky Burns just up the road. We could have this Celtic clash and, it would bring fans out.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's a good division to develop him. And as he said, he's been developed at the right pace. He's flown under the radar. The expectations aren't for him to headline cards yet, so they don't have to get him the name opponents. They can actually focus on getting him opponents, which will develop him as a fighter and put him through tough tests.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Cardina's stepped up. But I think because, I don't want to disrespect any of the Welsh boxing fans out there, but I think that Cardina's a wee bit maybe like Lee Selby. I don't think he gets a big support. I don't think he's got a big backing. So with guys like that, I think that Matchroom are no scared to step them up quick. Because there's no lot behind them. Matchroom's making all the investment, so I think that they're more open to kind of like pushing them on a bit quicker. So I actually really looking forward to the next 18 months of Joe Cardina's career. I think you're going to see this lad step up to the forefront of British boxing.
Exactly. An exciting prospect and somebody to, watch out for over the next, 12 to 18 months and see them develop. And every time he's going to watch, I'll certainly tune in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as I said, he was in there showing skills early night. He wasn't showboating. He was absolutely boxing Townsend's head off. But he wasn't showboating, he was doing his job, he was doing it efficiently, and I thought it was, it was refreshing, to watch the contrast between that and Josh Kelly, it was night and day, and I really go for that kind of Cardina, away for the hype, away for the cameras, and, just kind of coming into the public knowledge, the casual knowledge is just now,
Yeah, and he's at the age as well, he's, in his mid-20s or something.
I think he's 27 years old, so this is a perfect time for him to start stepping up. He's coming into his physical prime, and he's got a good 5 years sitting there. Maybe 4 or 5 years there at his physical prime before he starts having to worry about the dip. So that it's going to be a great journey watching that lad because he's brilliant.
Yeah, agreed. I think we've got 2 Cardina fans here in unison.
Yeah, that's it. The cheerleaders, man, that's it. That's us. That's it. The check should be in the post for Eddie Hearn now. But I think that's us. We've talked that card to death, even though it was a shit card. We've actually spoke about that for half an hour the night. We usually only go for an hour, so I think we're going to overshoot the mark the night.
That's fine.
The other big fight, the big fight for the US was in MSG, Madison Square Garden, was Tete's Crawford, my favourite fighter on the planet, love him, was fighting Amir Khan. Now, how did you see this fight? We've got the low blow gate kind of stuff. How did you view this?
Well, before going to low blow gate, it's fair to say that Terence Crawford is a generational talent, and it wasn't something that was evident when he fought against Ricky Burns, which probably is such a credit to Ricky Burns for actually giving him a tough fight.
Yeah, Ricky Burns was actually criticised at the time because
Yeah,
nobody
exactly.
knew who this lad was. And that Terence Crawford that night, he got a hell of a time from Ricky Burns. And I don't think anybody's probably took as many rounds off Terence Crawford since.
No, certainly not. And he's stopped guys. Obviously, he's gone up the weight as well, so maybe he's got a bit more power. I was watching the US broadcast, and there was a few very telling moments in that fight. So I think it was between round 4 and 5 when Khan came into his corner, and he said to Virgil, "Oh, my ribs hurt." And Virgil says, "You just need to keep on going, son," or something like that. And he just said, "Oh, but my ribs hurt." And at that point, I just thought to myself, he's looking for a way out, or, he's something mentally isn't there. Because fighters don't complain about stuff like that. They might, when your trainer says you need to keep on going, it would imply that the trainer senses that the fighter wants a way out. Then during the fight as well, they interviewed Terence Crawford's trainer, and he was being so condescending towards Khan because this is something like, "Oh, Amir Khan, he doesn't have any speed anymore. Terence is quicker than him. This is an easy fight. We're not worried at all." And
he was the coolest guy in that arena. Terence, I can't remember his name, but I was watching it, and I think he gives a wee message out, a wee shout out to like ladies and all that. He was the coolest guy. Absolutely no
Omaha,
worries.
to the Omaha. Everybody in Omaha, Nebraska. This is what top trainer's doing in the middle of his guy's world title fight. So I think everybody knew from the outset that this was going to be a bit of a gimme fight for Crawford. I mean, he boxed really well. He broke Khan down. He was hitting him in the body quite a few times. And there was a few times where you just thought, even after the first round, that Khan can't sustain this beating. But for me, Khan's legs were gone. One thing I noticed, like he wasn't as quick on his legs as usual. We remember the Devon Alexander fight where he was hopping in and out of range, throwing combinations. And Khan, when he was throwing punches, Crawford was throwing punches as well, and Crawford was catching him every time. So that speed, which has always been Khan's biggest asset, that had gone. And in terms of the whole Queth Gates, he was a low blow. Whether it hit him on the side of the cup or not, I don't think matters as much. It's more a case that at that point, I think he was hoping that the referee would disqualify Crawford, and because the referee wasn't looking to disqualify Crawford, he just said he basically got a way out. I can understand that because I don't think he wanted to be flattened anymore, but I don't think the hunger's there anymore. I think he should call it a day. He might be a bit deluded in terms of thinking that the people around him will convince him that it was a low blow, but I think everybody saw that fight, that Crawford was dominating him. He wanted out, and he got hit low, and then he took his opportunity.
Yeah, well,
what did you think?
Yeah, I thought that Terence Crawford, he just looked. I mean, Amir Khan was saying before that he's a bigger, stronger man. He didn't look like that in there. I think that Terence Crawford's deceivingly big. I think that when you look at Terence Crawford outside and in interviews, he looks small. He doesn't look that big, he doesn't. Until you see him in the ring against another 147, you go, he's actually a big lad, he's got the physique. And I thought he was bullying Khan. When Khan was trying to hold on the inside, Terence Crawford was ragdolling him about with his physical strength. But to talk about Khan, the first round kind of showed what Khan's became. He was kind of using a swimming technique. His hands were windmilling over the top, and his legs were staying. His head was leaning away in. And, the first time he got away with it, because Crawford couldn't sort his feet out, he tried it again a couple of seconds later, and that's when Terence Crawford, he kind of seen it coming. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and bang. And I thought Terence Crawford, that first knockdown shows you everything about Terence Crawford. It shows you that this guy knows all your triggers. He'll watch your triggers, and he knows what's coming to him before. So he's already ready, waiting to counter what you're doing, and I thought it was a superb knockdown. I thought Khan did well. He actually got up, and I think he caught another big punch in the second. But I totally agree. He was looking for a way out, and when it actually got to the low blow, I don't know if you noticed this, but as Terence Crawford's lining up an uppercut, Can comes running in and pulls his head down. That's why he got the low blow, because he pulled Crawford's head down, so it took the punch out of like, off target. But I thought as that fight got on, it was getting harder and harder to watch, because Terence Crawford was starting to, he was doing this thing where he was feinting to the head, and he was dropping he was dropping his legs down to the body, and then you could see it was just breaking Can down. So he was kind of thrown to the head, but when he would drop his legs down, and by the time it reached its target, he was hitting him in the midriff, and it was, I'm like, that's superb to watch. He's great to watch, Crawford, because he never stops fainting. So he absolutely knows. He just works out everything. It's great to watch. And I thought the stoppage, to be fair, I can't really blame Amir Khan, because he doesn't want to get iced again, because that fight was just, I would have gave that another round or two and he was getting iced again.
Yeah.
But to claim that, anybody that claims it wasn't a quit, you're delusional. You're delusional. It wasn't a low blow. Khan had the option to take 5 minutes. He claimed he didn't know he had the option to take 5 minutes. This is a fucking kid who's boxed pretty much his full life. Are you telling me that he doesn't know the rules of boxing, that he doesn't know that he's got 5 minutes to recover in there? Amir Khan wanted out of there, and he got his money, he got paid, and he didn't get iced. Maybe the fact that he didn't get iced, maybe that'll give Amir Khan a couple of years more on his life, you know what I mean? Because he's been iced that many times now. You've got to start suspecting the brain. The brain's permanently been damaged by now.
Well, sometimes you hear him slurs his words a bit, so you kind of worry for him. And I think you made a good point about the body shots, because that's what Canelo did, hit him in the body a few times, and then he fainted and threw that punch over the top, and that's what knocked Khan out. And I think it was the second or third round where Crawford was hitting Khan a lot in the body, and that's when after that he came and said in the corner that he's hurt his ribs. So I think Khan has always been, susceptible to the body shots. And I think that's something what Team Crawford knew that was going to happen, because I think they were going to go for the same tactic as Canelo did, where you're hitting Khan in the body and then he feints and he throws over the top. And, I don't think Khan looked a bit fleshy as well when he came into the ring.
Yeah, I thought that. I really thought that as well. He did, Amir's always had a great physique, and he really didn't have one. He'd one similar to mine coming in there.
Yeah, it's sad to see such a good fighter, decline so much and just, be in it for the money. And a fighter, you can never expect them to say, I quit the fight, or, it wasn't, he's obviously going to use that card in public. But I think his team knows and everybody else knows that he quit that fight, and it's a shame. It was a sad ending in terms of it didn't probably give Crawford the credit that he deserved for his performance, took attention away with the low blow. But then again, we don't want to see Khan splattered on the canvas. So I just hope he calls you a day rather than they're dragging out for one more fight.
Yeah, but we'll move on. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about what constitutes as a quit. But
yeah,
as you say, Amir Khan's been a great servant to British boxing. This wave of British boxing that we've had over the last few years, it all started with Amir Khan coming back for, I think it was the Athens Olympics, with a silver medal at 17 years. He was the first superstar. Everybody loved him. And Amir Khan's been brilliant for British boxing. He's been brilliant for boxing altogether. He's given us some great nights. Now, I think his team has a responsibility to tell him to hang them up. Now, I wrote an article, and what it was is I watched Amir Khan after the Willie Lemon fight, and he was talking fast, he knew where he was going, everything he was saying, his sentences were always going somewhere. And then I watched him going into his last fight, and I was watching an interview, and he's searching for answers when he's getting asked. While he's speaking, he doesn't know where the sentence is actually going, he kind of sounds drunk, and I've just had it, surely people have got a duty of care for this guy. Everybody surely, all his team, surely to God, have made all their money now. There has to be time to tell this guy, hang them up for the good of your own family, you know what I mean? They deserve to have some good years with you as well, you know what I mean? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And well, it's a shame thing about boxing because obviously he had those stuff where his family members were allegedly taking money away from him, from his purse, and money went missing, and the new people around him might feel that they deserve some of the pie that he's going to make, and if the people actually care for him, they'll tell him to hang it up. I know Virgil Hunter said that he doesn't feel that Khan's done it yet, but then again, who does Virgil Hunter have that's going to make him money?
Exactly.
So it's the same thing that we always have in boxing, where fighters are the only way how these guys make money, and that's why the people around them are the last ones to tell them, that they need to hang it up. And also, if you're going to tell Khan as his mates or as his team member, I think you've got some brain damage and you need to quit, you're going to be out of that circle. So people would rather not be honest.
Yeah, but I always think that if you can go up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and know that you've done the right thing, then you've did nothing wrong, And I think there's
exactly.
a bit boxing can be a poisonous sport. There'll be people there looking to forfeit your health and your quality of life for their own pockets. They're sacrificing nothing or sacrificing very little. They're happy to do it with your health, but would they do it with their own? I doubt it. But let's move on to Terence Crawford. This fight, nobody wanted it, nobody asked for it, but we got it. It was a bit of a shitty ending, but did this fight show up the biggest flaw that Top Rank really have just now, in that they can't get Terence Crawford any big name opponents?
Yes, certainly, because with the TV networks, you'd have to do some sort of joint pay-per-view, and it seems like Errol Spence is going to fight against Sean Porter next, and all the PBC guys, they can just, they can fight on their own side of the street, and nobody really needs to Crawford. Nobody really needs to fight against Crawford. So eventually, I think he might move up in search for bigger fights, or even move down to fight against someone like Lomachenko. It's just really hard for, Bob Arum to try and come up with something that's going to keep Crawford engaged and that people are going to be paying to watch, because he is a pay-per-view star now, and we're going to have to make pay-per-view fights for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, I'm going to try and push this on now, because this is usually the point where we're getting to the end of the show and we have got so much more to speak about, and we're really only in the second subject. So we're going to jump straight on to Danny Garcia and Adrian Granados, I think the boy's name is. Granados, the only reason I know Granados is for, I think it was the Adrian Broner fight when he beat Broner,
exactly.
That surprising fight. But
now.
Danny Garcia, I watched the fight today. I thought Danny Garcia was back to the Danny Garcia that we like to see. Danny Garcia that went in there and looked to fucking gaze a bit of action. I thought he was looking for left hooks. Danny Garcia's left hook is one of the best left hands in boxing, up there with Nonito Donaire. And
agreed.
And he brought that right hook into play in this fight. And I thought that Danny Garcia could have went in there and took it 12 rounds and won every single round, but he didn't. He went in there, he took risks, and he looked to get this guy out, and it was fantastic. I thought he was great. I know it's not popular in boxing with the hardcore fans to like Danny Garcia, but I enjoyed the Sean Porter fight and I enjoyed this fight. So Danny Garcia, for me, I'll wait to criticise him.
I think, as you said, he's a very good fighter, and maybe that loss against Sean Porter, kind of, we forget what a good fighter he was before that. Actually, loss against Thurman. Before that, he was not far off pound for pound. He's in top 15 somewhere. But the challenge for him is he's lost to Porter, he's lost to Thurman. Where does he go now? Because obviously, it seems like Pacquiao's going to fight against Thurman, yeah.
Yep.
So, and Porter's going to fight against Spence.
And he's already knocked back the Terence Crawford fight. Which you could imagine this came from Al Heyman. So you must know that Al Heyman has gave him a guarantee. Al Heyman must have given him a guarantee that if you just hang fire, you don't go and take something like $4 million that Top Rank were offering. If you stay with us, we'll put you in line for something. So, I think that Danny Garcia will have a world title shot, if not by the end of this year, by the start of next year. That's the way I think
Yeah.
that, Al Heyman works, and that's why these guys never leave Al Heyman. He makes some guarantees and he fulfills it. And do you know what? Fair play to Al Heyman, because there's so many con men in boxing. If he's actually carrying out what he says to these guys, then you can't really blame him. I know Al Heyman gets a lot of criticism, but you know what? If these guys trust him with their careers, then fair play to them. But
Yeah, people are sending him birthday messages the other day when it was Al Heyman's birthday. All the US boxers on Twitter were "Happy birthday, Al Heyman!" The
yeah,
man that
man, they
changed
all
my
want
life.
in that. They all want in that circle, don't they, man? It's like, I don't know what the guy does, but he's.
I know.
I mean, he's got fighters that name their kids after him, and it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
Could you imagine Mike Tyson fucking calling his son fucking Don?
Yeah.
It would be unfucking thinkable.
And my favourite is every time in a press conference at the end of the fight they go, "I want to thank Al Heyman, and I want to thank God." First you thank Al Heyman, then you thank God.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously it was a fight Danny Garcia was meant to win. He did win, but Granados is a tough cookie. And I actually thought when I was watching it today, I was like, the first minute, I was like, Danny Garcia looks a little bit rusty. And I think 30
Yeah.
seconds later, I was like, Danny Garcia has got it all back. He's got his timing back. He's like, and it took him to land that first left hook. And then what he started doing was feinting with that left hook and catching him with the right hook. And it was fantastic. I thought it was great. And I know it's a cool thing and the popular thing with boxing fans to criticise Danny Garcia. And maybe rightly so, because his reign as champion was god awful. It was terrible. But I think that obviously he's not got the belt anymore, so he has to entertain. Do you know what I mean? He's not getting he brings nothing to the table now, so he's got to fight his way back up, and I'm loving it. I thought against Sean Porter he was unlucky. It was one of the best fights of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's a good fighter, and he probably has to change his style to be more fan friendly, and he's done that. But actually, a fight I'd quite like him to fight against a fighter is Kell Brook. If Kell Brook can make 147 as he wants to, fight against Khan at 147, so why wouldn't he be able to fight against Garcia?
And I think that's a fight that they would love to take, because DSG would absolutely destroy Kell Brook. I think I've always thought that. But Danny Garcia, as I said, he's not got the option to take the easy road out, so that's a fight that would probably be right up his street, because it's a fight that he would fancy. He know he would get into favourite, and it's a name. Kell Brook's still a name. If nothing else, Kell Brook is still a name in boxing.
Exactly, and I think Kell Brook would get well compensated for that fight. I don't think Eddie Hearn would have any problem sending him there either on a PBC show to have that fight, and I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's move on to the news, Riku, because that's us approaching the 50-minute mark, and that's us only in the second bit of the podcast. So
Yeah,
we have the guy who did not deserve the Anthony Joshua fight goes out and fails 3 drugs tests, and he just kind of proves everything that we kind of a lot of us suspected. How can a guy that 317 pounds have such a good output? Well, we know why, because it's all synthetic. It's all fake. If it's unbelievable to your eyes, then the chances are that it's not a miracle. It's just that they're cheating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Big Baby Miller, the whole thing was a farce, firstly. The fact that he was calling Joshua a drug cheat, he then declined, or he then says that I haven't taken any drugs. Then after the B sample, he admits to having taken drugs. But I think, if anything, it just highlights there's a big problem in with performance-enhancing drugs in the sport of boxing. Maybe he got his cycles wrong. Maybe his masking tactics weren't as good as people thought. Maybe he hasn't been drug tested to this extent before. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, he's a drug cheat. I don't think he'll be locked out to cold until they need to wheel him out a bit like Lucas Brown. But yeah, I think it's just a farce. And if anything, it just gives boxing a really bad name, because Joshua is such a big name, particularly in the UK. If his opponent gets, caught, cheating on drugs and failed drug tests, then it's just a bad thing for the whole sport of boxing.
Yeah, well, I have my own theories on this, but I also think that there's no coincidence here. That the fact that this fight's also been done with VADA
Yeah,
testing. All Miller's previous fights been done with, is it USADA or something, the USA
yeah,
anti-drugs? Yeah. Now, I was seeing a stat the other day that out of 1,500 tests, they had only found one person who'd been taking drugs, whereas every other, like, your UCAD and your VADA, they average it at 4%. So out of every 100, there should be 4 people. So if
yeah.
you're testing 1,500 people and you're only finding one person's cheating, there's definitely something wrong with your testing methods. If every other person that's doing it is finding round about the 4% mark, then there's something definitely wrong.
Well,
I really think that it's hard to say, but the US anti-doping drugs people, I don't know if it's what it is that they're doing, but I find that it could be very corruptible. They might be stuck in
well,
the old system. The boxer maybe tell you when he's going to take maybe take the drug tests. I know with VADA, if you sign up to VADA 24, it's like 24/7. They can appear anytime, and that's how they catch these guys. And that's what we want.
well, yeah. I think it's as I mentioned, being out of cycle. So, how performance enhancing drugs work. To my knowledge, is that you're not always on them, so you can be off cycle at times. And when you're off cycle, you test clean, but you still have the benefits of taking those drugs.
Yeah.
And
Some of them can last up to a year. Some of them,
yeah, exactly, and that's why I think if he's been VADA tested, he probably didn't realise the extent, and he didn't realise that it's not just one test. I just think they got their cycles wrong and they got caught, and there's nothing you can do about that. And shame on him.
As boxing, can boxing look at the world of sport and look at it with a straight face that now it's only just really last year or the year before that we've started hearing about companies like VADA, and if you fight for the WBC you need to sign up for 24/7 testing. Why is that a thing? Why is it not when you sign up to be a professional boxer or an athlete, any athlete, even amateur, probably most of the
Yeah.
amateurs, why is it not so when you sign up for a competition you're also signing a contract to say that you are open to 24/7 testing anywhere, the same as pretty much any sport?
Well,
Why is boxing so far behind? Is it the fact that we don't really want to catch these guys?
I think it's because there's nobody's going to be paying for it, because drug testing is really expensive. So what you effectively need is some sort of governing body like a FIFA, or a big body like the UFC, which controls all the fighters sign a contract under it. Boxing's just a desperate collections of contracts by different promoters and promotional outfits, which means that if your promoter isn't willing to pay for drug testing, whether it be a small hall promoter or at the world level, then who's going to be paying for the guys who test these guys 24/7? There isn't enough money in boxing to do it. So I think in boxing it's just complacent, and it's not. Maybe what you need to do is something like take a percentage off each show fee that goes towards a centralized budget for drug testing. But I don't think promoters would be too happy with that either. So there isn't really a clear solution because it's not governed by one source, boxing.
Yeah, that's a problem. There's no doubt. I think we spoke about this in the last podcast about
Yeah.
how disciplining boxers. It's the same idea, because there's not one overruling governing body, but surely getting drugs out the sport is everybody's best interest, you would think, or is it only the fans that really care about it? Because the reason I say this is because, a few years ago I was a keen cyclist. Now I'm a bit too chubby, but I was a keen cyclist, and and I kind of got into cycling round about the time that the Lance Armstrong myth fell apart.
Yeah.
And I was sitting watching, and Lance Armstrong was the boogeyman. He was a boogeyman because everybody that was finishing all these hours behind him, they were all cheating as well.
Yeah.
Every single one of them was cheating. So I was sitting there going, why are these guys? How can they cheat the system? And then when I actually found out that if you looked across to boxing, still at that time, boxers get told when they sign their contract, you have to do 3 drugs test, but you arrange the drug test. You don't. It's not random. They don't just show up and say, right, I need you to come out and give us a sample. You arranged for these. So all that time that you're in camp before you sign the contract, you could be taking these drugs, and you're getting the benefits for 6 months, 12 months down the line. I can't fathom the fact that surely to God there's got to be some way that this testing could be done just off the cuff. I couldn't believe boxing was so far behind, placing so much trust when it's actually a sport where you could kill somebody. I've
I
always
agree.
said this is like loading gloves. We've always seen Louis Resta when he took the padding out of the
Yeah.
gloves. Tell me the difference between taking anabolics or, taking steroids or like taking whatever. Tell me the difference between taking the padding out the gloves or bulking up your muscles so you can pack the gloves more. I don't understand that.
I agree, and I think one of the challenges is as well that even in athletics it's quite new. So you used to be, when you were training out in Jamaica for 9 months before the Olympics, nobody would test you because they don't really have drug testing out there, and they're not going to fly people, test people there. And, a lot of people benefited from it. In athletics, there's more stricter testing now, and, a lot of things have come out since then. But it's in the interest of the image of the whole sport. Whereas boxing, there's so many levels. Like, you have the small hall levels where you go to, let's say, the good one card that we went to, you've got 10 bouts on that, total of 20 boxers. Every weekend in your core, you could have, 40 boxers, 30 boxers fighting every weekend. So the challenge is finding a system that's inexpensive and effective enough, because the higher up you go, the more money you need to spend on testing, because it's not just off the shelf stuff. It's really complex stuff that these guys are taking that's been produced in laboratories where BARDA might not even have all all that stuff. So it becomes more expensive. But I agree, it's in the interest of the sports. But one of my friends pointed a good point to me a while ago when we were talking about this. Is this much worse than having an Olympian beat up a cab driver in their debut? I mean, it's equally as dangerous in many ways. I think in boxing, another thing that's quite detrimental is the matchmaking in some cases.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's probably more visible than drug testing in many ways.
Probably more so. I mean, if we're talking about Jarrell Miller fighting Anthony Joshua, what is Jarrell Miller gaining? Maybe 10%, 15%?
Yeah.
If you're putting Anthony Fowler in against a guy that picks you up for the airport, then, regardless, Anthony Fowler probably doesn't need to train for that fight, and he'll probably go out and smash him. It's pretty much, he's fighting me. I know I wouldn't stand a chance against Anthony Fowler. So or any boxer, but I totally agree with what you're saying. Matchmaking, I think that some of the bouts that get, in Britain especially, some of the fights that get sanctioned, you go, how did this ever seem like an idea? Why are they not taking responsibility for this? Because somebody could get seriously hurted here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, in boxing, we talk about drug testing, and there's a problem in boxing. But I think there's a problem in lots of sports. It's funny how no Premier League football ever gets caught, doing performance enhancing drugs, or even Championship, League One, or anywhere else. But I think the matchmaking is, for me, one of the bugbears, is because it's such an evident thing. As you mentioned, Anthony Fowler, Olympian, that hits relatively hard, fighting against a guy that's 217 from Latvia, that's basically eaten his way to the weight class.
Yeah, well, here's one for you, Riku. What do you think's a bigger problem in boxing? Is it the poor matchmaking and the mismatches that are made, or is it doping?
I think it's a poor matchmaking, because that's something that you can police a lot easier. So what you can't police is, you can police, but it's really expensive. It's something that can be solved in a shorter space of time, and just making sure that the matchmaking at a level where somebody's established amateur, not these journeymen that, are like Luis Van Pooch that fight every other weekend as journeyman, but know how to protect themselves. Those aren't, those are guys that know what they're doing in the ring. But when you're getting these, plumbers coming over from other countries fighting, that's something where, somebody's going to have blood on their hands very soon. And that's something that we can actually point towards and say, this is bad for the sports, because in every sport you have drug cheats. And you can say, yeah, it's a problem in boxing, but it's in every other sport. Whereas when you have a show aired on TV and you have a guy being knocked unconscious that just isn't at the level where the other guys, that's something that's really detrimental to boxing.
I think there is an easy solution here. I know we say that there's different commissions, there's different governing bodies, there's all these different things, but surely when you are an athlete, any kind of athlete, there is a governing body, a drug testing. Now here in the UK we've got UCAD, so if you're an athlete in this country, then UCAD will test you. That is the way to go. Why in every single country that they have got a 24/7? Because at the end of the day, regardless if you're professional or no, if you're an American or if you're British and you're in a big title fight and you're representing your country, regardless whether it be professional or no, you're there like, oh, the British guy's fighting the American guy. That's what it boils down to. We all go tribal when it comes to this kind of thing. And it should just be, a percentage. It should be a tax, a 1% of every single purse goes to this. And that's how it's funded, the same way as the amateurs do it. The same people that probably, like, how many amateurs, because you're coming up to the Commonwealths or the Olympics. Why is it so different? Why are we putting trust into guys when they turn pro, but we don't trust them when they're amateurs? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean with that?
Yeah, I agree. And the challenge with that is getting all the governing bodies together, agreeing on that. And that includes even, it doesn't even have to be WBA, WBC. You just have to get British Board of Boxing Control, everybody else together. And if they can all agree that this is a good thing for the sports and implement a system like that, then it could work. But as long as we aren't having lots of high-profile drug cheats, it's probably not going to happen because people won't think there's a problem as much as it is.
Yeah, well, I wrote an article about this, and I called it Heroes and Villains because, I loved Evander Holyfield when I was growing up. Drug cheat. I loved Canelo. I still love Canelo Alvarez and now, so, drug cheat. Whether you believe it or no, the guy's a drug cheat.
Yeah.
And I think boxing fans and people, human beings, we are hypocrites. We are born hypocrites, I love these guys, and regardless of what they were tested positive for, I still love them today. And, I wrote an article about it as like, my old man, my father's disabled, my old man's blind. He's the strongest guy you'll ever meet, he's at the gym every day of the week. And then me and him do charity cycles, and he hates it. See, he'll sit and tell me about when he goes down the gym and these young lads come down, he's like, and within a few weeks they're benching all this. He's like, aye, but they're taking steroids. He's like, they're all in the juice. And he deplores it, he's like, they're just cheating, he's like, they're cheating themselves, and I've kind of got my morals for that, but up until you find out that some of your heroes are doing it, then you start rationalising it, and it kind of takes me, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it remembers me of something Tyson Fury says. Tyson Fury says years ago that he's like, everybody is doing it, everybody's doing it, and he said, he's like, the only way to get rid of drug cheats is by making all the drugs legal to take, and everybody laughed at the time for it was a Tyson Fury joke. But, I'm starting to actually see the rationale behind that now, because anybody that I see that looks better than the average man or looks, the Lance Armstrong effect, you get the guy's coming back for cancer, oh, it's amazing, what a story, this is, like, it's unbelievable, it's a miracle. Well, miracles aren't real. Lance Armstrong was doing so good because he was cheating. He had the best cheating system going, he had the best drug system going. And I think that goes to every sport, whether it be football, whether it be basketball, whether it be boxing. You've got guys that are just there, that anybody that doesn't look natural, it looks abnormal, then you've always got to lean towards the cheat. The Lance Armstrong effect, if any lessons to be learned for that, is you don't get miracles or superhumans. What you get is people with good drug cycles. You know, that's and I might be a pessimist, but do you know what? I'll be cheated a lot less thinking like that than the average person who thinks that these people are superhumans.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is, what you have to think, that, at least in my opinion, is that there's sort of a grey area in this cheating. So if something's on the banned list because it enhances your performance, if you take something that's not on the banned list, which enhances your performance, are you cheating then? Because it's sort of not black and white. I mean, it is in Jarrell Miller's case because you're taking something that's on the banned list to enhance your performance, therefore you're breaking the rules, therefore you're cheating. But a lot of these athletes will take supplements and other stuff, which are, I wouldn't say illegal, but they are stuff that enhance their performance by it's not being put on the ban list yet.
Well,
So
sorry
that's
to
the kind of
interrupt
thing,
you,
isn't
Riku.
it?
Sorry to interrupt you there, but like, there is this other thing from cycling that I'm going to bring into this because I can't watch cycling anymore because everybody is a cheat. Everybody's a cheat, right? And it was, do you know that every cyclist, like 90% of the cyclists that take part in the Tour de France, they're all asthmatics, so they can get a prescription to take steroids. Now, Freddie Flintoff, I heard him speaking on the radio, famous England cricket player. Now, he actually is an asthmatic. I don't want to disrespect cricket, but cricket's not really a sport where doping's going to help you. You're not overexerted. They drink tea at half time.
Exactly.
But Freddie Flintoff just hit the nail on the head. He's like, I've got really severe asthma. He says, I take one of these shots a week. He says, these guys in the Tour de France, he's like, they're taking one a day, these powerful steroids. He's like, he's like, that's unheard of. But obviously these guys are finding a loophole round it, and nobody's going to tell me that soccer players or boxing, like boxers, are finding loopholes to take legal drugs,
Well, they've
steroids.
got voluntary use exemptions, don't they? So you can.
Yeah, man.
So I'm not sure whether it is. I'm not sure whether it's on BoxRec which boxes have voluntary use exemptions for certain stuff, and I think if there is a way of making that less public, I think that should be made public as well. The same way as we know who's been VADA tested, who isn't. It'd be good to know who has voluntary use exemptions. Because again, it would be another thing where we could look and we could say, well, this guy's using something that's enhancing his performance, whether he needs it or not. That's your opinion ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not saying that there's no disabled people or guys with disorders that need it, but the loopholes are being exploited. So I think that there's also an argument there at the top level, especially at any sport, at the pinnacle. I mean, at the Tour de France, it's the pinnacle of the cycling year. It's the biggest, most prestigious award that you can get. And probably the most grueling thing in sport. Nobody goes through that in sport. And you can see why these guys do dope. Because, I mean, just to complete the Tour de France is insane.
Yeah.
But surely, God, there should be, at the top level anyway, doctors that actually assess your need. And if they don't think that you need what you're taking, then you don't get to take it or you don't get to compete.
Exactly.
Yeah, but listen, we've talked that one to death as well, man. We're an hour and 10 minutes now, and we've just did the second bit of the news, so let's go with this. Tete has had to pull out the World Boxing Super Series because of an injury. I've got to admit, I am so disappointed. So disappointed. That was a fight that was making this weekend for me. How do you feel about this? And do you think that it's got anything to do with the WBSS going to Sky Sports?
Yeah, I mean, call me a cynic again. I do think it has something to do with that. Maybe there's something in the contract of Frank Warren fighters where they can't fight in Sky. Certain fighters, not everyone, because obviously there's first bids and other things. So there might be something like that, but it's a shame because Tete is a fighter that I think we've been waiting to fight against someone decent and step up. So it's a real shame. And the replacement opponent doesn't look particularly good or dangerous. And I think it's a fight that Tete could have won. And then it would have been great to see him in the final. I think it's a whole shame for the whole tournament. And actually, the second season of the WBSS just hasn't lived up to the hopes that we've all had.
Yeah, man. I mean, I am the biggest fan of the WBSS. I went to Berlin to watch Usyk and Hook. I went to Riga to watch the Granados and Usyk. I was at Glasgow. I was at the press conferences in Glasgow as well, meeting Nanito Donaire. Nanito Donaire is one of my favourite boxers ever. One of the first people ever to sign up to VADA 24/7. I don't know a lot of people know that. I mean, Nanito Donaire done that years ago. That's why I love him. There is no question about Nanito Donaire's, his ethics in this sport. He was one of the first people. He was a pioneer in the sport. But I got to meet all these guys, and I was really looking forward to it because I thought, when Ryan Burnett's back went, a lot of people thought Nanito Donaire was got to be weight trained. But when I interviewed Nanito Donaire, he told me he made the weight fine. And now every boxer says that, but when I actually seen him in the ring, he didn't look like a guy who was struggled. He looked like an able body. He just kind of looked like an old fighter. And I thought he was landing quite a few shots on Ryan Burnett. That's just me. Maybe I was sitting too far away, but I thought he was landing a few. And obviously,
he fought well against Frampton, didn't he? And
man. And Nanito Donaire's got that left hand, and the power's the last thing to go. And Nanito Donaire is, if he catches you with it, I don't care who you are, you're going down. Now, this was Tete's chance to announce himself because we all suspect that Tete is a world-class fighter.
Yeah.
But we've not seen him against a world-class fighter, which means you cannot call Tete a world-class fighter because, again, taking it back to football, Man United playing Scunthorpe, or, they beat them 7-0. They're a world-class team, but you can't say that until they've played Barcelona, Real Madrid. You have to see class versus class. Exactly. So I'm so gutted about this, and I really suspect that it's something to do with Frank Warren.
Yeah, so do I, and it will be interesting to see how soon he fights afterwards and who against, because that will be a bit of a teller. If they get him in the card in the summertime, a decent, big fight where he makes a good lot of money, something that you'd expect that he would have probably made from this fight. So that probably would be sort of a teller that he's pulled out for that reason. It just seems so sudden, in line with the announcements as well, and it seemed very last minute.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. You're not telling me it's just a coincidence that Frank Warren's fighter pulls out the tournament the day before or 2 days before it's announced that the tournament is moving on to Sky Sports. Nobody's telling me that. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, and in Frank Warren's stable, he's one of the best, not for the hardcores, but he's one of the big names in the stable, and he's one of the guys that, you wouldn't want him risking his title to fight on a Sky Sports show. That's just the reality. You probably want him to fight, for a WBO title, maybe against the winner of that tournament on BT Sports. That's probably a fight they could make, or, go out to Japan for big money and fight against, Inoue or someone like that.
Yeah, well, I've interviewed Tete, and he's a lovely fella. He really is. He's a great guy. He's had a great upbringing. He was telling stories about his dad, etc. It was fantastic. And anybody that survived apartheid South Africa just deserves so much respect alone. Never mind like this, but I think that he's being robbed. We're waiting. I think we spoke about this the last podcast about Martin Bacoli. Some of these foreign guys try to make it big on our soil. They get one chance. To make it big, and this was Tete's chance to make a name for himself, get to the final, and he could be in there and all you need to do is put in a performance against Inoue, and people remember that. Instead he's went out with a whimper. And I really hope that he is injured and it's not just been down to politics, because that lad must feel, if he's been told for his management team that he has to pull out due to contract or whatever, then I think that's very sad. I think that's a sad indictment on boxing as well.
Yeah, I agree. And he's not young either, so he's in his early 30s. So It's not like he has long left. He's not a big ticket seller either. So, you know, this is far from ideal. And the money he would have been making from this tournament alone would be much more than he'd make for a world title fight. And I don't think it bodes well for boxing, as you mentioned. And it's a bit of a letdown for you guys that are going to go to a show and, you know, enjoy the card to not be able to see such a talented fighter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk a wee bit more about that card later on with the Regis Prograis Relic fight. But let's move on to the next segment in the news. And it's on that Sky card at the weekend, the Matchroom card, it was announced that Dillian Whyte's going to fight Rivas on a pay-per-view. Now, obviously this made big waves on the boxing Twitter.
Yeah.
Right, I'll just fire this question at you. Is this a pay-per-view fight?
No. I mean, the reality is it's not what I would think is a pay-per-view fight. But I think there's a few things that constitute to that. One is Dillian Whyte has been lucky enough to make that money recently fighting against Chisora, Parker, where his purses are pay-per-view purses. And the other thing is Sky haven't run pay-per-view shows this year, if I'm correct. They haven't done a pay-per-view yet.
Nope.
So in
and
order
Eddie's
for the
got
Sky
a quarter
model
to make. Eddie's got a quarter.
Yeah, in order for that Sky model to work and why Sky can pump money into boxing, they have to make money through pay-per-view. They just have to. And I think they probably banking that enough people will buy the fight if they fill the undercard with the likes of Dave Allen and other names, maybe someone like Charlie Edwards for world title fight, that they can say, it's a stacked card and Dillian Whyte's fight against this dangerous, guy that's a banger. I mean, Eddie Hearn already called him a mini Mike Tyson yesterday or the other day on one of these. I think it might have been a boxing social.
It's like fucking, he actually is Del Boy though, isn't he? He actually comes out like some of Del Boy Trotter's best thing. The next thing he'll be talking shitty French,
Yeah, exactly. So he has to sell this fight. Dillian's going to sell the fight, and Dillian's got both of the name. They'll probably drag AJ, actually probably not drag AJ there, but they'll float around that the next fight is AJ, the next fight is for world title. So they'll build the fight up, sell enough pay-per-views for their model to work, but it's no pay-per-view card by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder in my opinions. As Dillian Whyte is now a pay-per-view fighter for the only reason is that Dillian Whyte has seen pay-per-view paychecks. And you know what? That's rightly so, because I would go to my work one week for £1,000 and then agree to go to my work next week for £300. No, I would say no.
Exactly.
You're going to keep giving me the £1,000, and that's the way I look at it. So Dillian Whyte's right, and I think it's the same thing that happened with Kell Brook. Forced in, Eddie needed him to take up pay-per-view cards. He took them against Golovkin, not detrimentally his career. But after that, I mean, Kell Brook's he's got his place to say, no, I'm a pay-per-view fighter. No, I want to be on pay-per-view. And Dillian Whyte's the exact same, and that's why we're getting this in pay-per-view. But regardless of that, I do mean it's not a pay-per-view fight, but this is a good fight, isn't it?
Hello?
Riku, you there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying that this fight might not be pay-per-view, but this is a good fight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's probably not a fight that Dillian Whyte needs, to be honest. He probably just sit tight, hold out for mandatory. But the challenge for him is that nobody's pushing him into that mandatory position because, he's with Matchroom. The only mandatory that they would ever push him is against Wilder. But now Wilder's fighting his mandatory, so he won't have another mandatory for a year. So Dillian Whyte's probably for him and his team, the clever thing is to keep on making pay-per-view money, fighting against dangerous fighters that they think they can win.
Do you think?
One time, if he came unstuck, Dillian Whyte, he's losing in points against Chisora a while ago. He's had a few, even against Parker, he tired late. If he came unstuck, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's a big risk fight. It could cost him. It could cost him what he's worked so hard to get. But do you think right now, Dillian Whyte is regretting not going to Bulgaria and fighting Pulev?
Probably not, because if you look at his bank balance, he probably isn't regretting it.
Yeah, but if we're going to just work off bank balances, then he doesn't really care about this fight.
Yeah.
You know, if
I
we're looking
think-
at that,
yeah.
if we're looking at trying to get into a position for a world title, Pulev was there. Pulev was there to be beat. He was due to be paid big money. I mean, I think that the people that backed Pulev, I mean, they paid astronomical money to win that purse bid. It was something like 4 million euros or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot changed, because at that time, you know, he was destined to fight against AJ at Wembley, wasn't he? So there was no need for him to necessarily do that. And the other thing is, I think Pulev would have been a really tough fight, because Pulev's a well-schooled fighter. He can bang. You can't knock Pulev down. He's got a good chin. I mean,
But surely to God,
but-
that's the kind of fight you need to become a mandatory. That's what we want as boxing fans. I know that that's maybe not what Dillian Whyte wants or what Eddie Hearn wants, but that's what we want. We want to see a guy fight hard to get into a position where he then fights for a world title. We don't want to fucking see... Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. A mandatory... I mean, Povetkin. Povetkin, AJ. We didn't want to see that. We didn't want to see Povetkin fight there, but he got into that position because he beat David Price. Fucking, I could probably beat David Price if I ran away for 4 rounds. You know, he would have an asthma attack. You know, I don't... I think that Dillian Whyte's in a position where he's been paid handsomely to be a sweeper for Anthony Joshua. He plays sweeper. He fights guys that maybe be an awkward opponent for AJ. But he's now finding himself that they don't want to give him the time of day when it actually comes to fighting AJ himself.
But isn't he the WBL mandatory?
Yeah, but Alexander...
Now they're going to put Usyk...
Alexander Usyk, but because he steps up, it's a rule. It's the same rule that Terence Crawford utilised. When Terence Crawford moved up, it became automatic mandatory to Jeff Horn. And it's the same idea with Usyk. He, because he's the cruiserweight champion, when he steps up to heavyweight, he moves into number 1 automatically, which I think is a good rule. You know, I like that. I like that. It's a great rule.
Yeah, I think it's a good rule as well. But with Dillian Whyte and the IBF mandatory, that mandatory is going to be called towards the end of the year. So what's going on with Pulev at the moment? Who knows? I mean, it could be that he gets made mandatory on the IBF ahead of, you know, based on this one fight, because he's probably highly ranked there as well.
We're supposed to believe that Eddie Hearn... No, sorry. Take that back. We're supposed to believe that Al Heyman and Bob Arum were courting Dillian Whyte when he was over in New York. I think he was over there for the Fury Wilder fight or whatever. You know, that wee detail gets away from me. But we're seeing now that it's probably in Dillian Whyte's best interest to maybe leave. You know, if he goes with Al Heyman, he's got the road to Wilder. If he goes with Bob Arum, he's got the road to Fury. And, you know, I think it maybe just for boxing, if for Dillian Whyte to leave Matchroom, it opens it up a bit more. You know, it would... AJ's not get that kind of blocker anymore, if that gets...
Yeah.
You know, and...
Okay, I've got a question for you then. Dillian Whyte, to my understanding... They haven't announced Matchroom that he's signed a long-term, you know, they've signed a long-term contract with Dillian Whyte. So he probably is a free agent in the sense that whoever makes the best offer for him on a fight-by-fight basis will work with them. But there's nothing... So if you were Dillian Whyte after this fight and you were a free agent, as I suspect he is, what would you do? Would you try and get to top rank and maybe fight against Fury? What would you try and do?
But, well, this was something we were going to move on to later on, but we'll take it up now. We were asking what's happened to PBC UK. Dillian Whyte could become the face of PBC UK if he goes with Al Heyman. And, you know, that would be the smart move for me. It would be on a platform. I mean, people love Dillian Whyte. People love him because, you know, he's a lovable rogue. You know, and he's come up the hard way. He get beat off Joshua, but it's not as if he's shunned away if he fights. You know, he's done well for himself. He goes to Al Heyman. Al Heyman can get him that door to Wilder. If he
That's
beats
true.
Wilder, then he's got the door to the unification of the heavyweight title, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable.
He has to stop. I wrote an article about this as well, sorry, but I wrote an article about he's always the bridesmaid and never the bride. Maybe it's time for him to leave a place where he's always going to be number 2 and go be number 1 for himself. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the best thing for him. Especially at this stage where he's made millions and millions of pounds. Maybe now he can actually look out for his career and his legacy, because imagine Dillian Whyte retired and he never ever got that world title shot. Could you imagine that? I mean, it's quite possible that could happen.
That could happen, and the challenge for him is that there's no single promoter with a deep enough heavyweight stable, apart from Matchroom, where he could go and be the number 1. So if you went to Top Rank, Tyson Fury is their number 1. If
and he would just PBC, be a blocker again. That's it.
Wilder
exactly.
Wilder would be the number 1. So,
but PBC have this UK,
olive
branch.
Even though, I mean, how would they force? They could probably try and force a mandatory somehow, and then try and get it onto ITV pay-per-view and try and so that goes to purse bids. But in any case, I think, as he mentioned, it might be that it's too late for him to make his move, because he could have been that guy for Top Rank, before Tyson Fury fought against Wilder.
But surely, obviously, Anthony Joshua holds 3 of the 4 titles. Surely if you go with somebody like Al Heyman, they're going to force you into some sort of position. They're going to, because they want Anthony Joshua on PBC. They want him on Showtime. So it's in their best interest to get you into that mandatory position. Whereas where Dillian Whyte is right now, it's only in Matchroom's best interest to have Dillian Whyte in the WBC mandatory position. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of staying with Matchroom. He's really not. He's going down a lane when he could go down a high street. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I think with him as well, he's clearly a smart, business savvy guy. Or his team.
For what I hear, Dillian Whyte is so business savvy. He's not one of these guys that's going to leave boxing with nothing. For what I actually hear, that Dillian Whyte's set up his own promotional company, and he's got some great guys looking after him outside the ring.
Exactly. So he would have had those conversations with Heyman and Bob Arum, and there must have been something that what they suggested, it just didn't appeal enough for him. But look, the interesting thing will be to see after this fight what he does next, because I imagine he'll be impatient as well. He might have been promised a big Joshua fight in exchange for taking this fight and saving the pay-per-view or getting the pay-per-view card in the UK. So there must be a long-term plan here. At least I'm hoping, where he gets to fight a champion next, because I don't think he would want to fight against Povetkin in the fall or something like that. So there must have been some sort of guarantees there.
There's only so many times you can match him against good guys. I mean, Whyte Povetkin's a good
before
fight.
He loses.
There's only so many times before he loses, and then it all comes tumbling down. You can't. No fighter, a modern fighter nowadays anyway, has to fight the kind of opposition Dillian Whyte's fought just to get into a mandatory position. I kind of feel for Whyte. I understand why he wasn't a WBC mandatory. I understand that because he didn't fight in a final eliminator. Granted, take that. I understand what the WBC have done there, but it would be an absolute crime to fight the opposition that he's fought and he never gets into a mandatory position. Because nobody's going to take him as a voluntary because he's too risky.
No, and I don't think he'd want to. Yeah, I don't think the money will be there currently. I mean, obviously, Team Joshua offered that money, and that's where he probably could have benefited from being with another promoter. But yeah, it's a tricky one. But I'm pretty sure they would have guaranteed something, maybe a Joshua fight in the autumn rather than Usyk. They can build Usyk in the USA, because Usyk's under their banner. They don't have to force that mandatory with the WBO. It will be interesting how the next IBF rankings come out with Pulev, with what's happened with Pulev and how that court case plays out as well. Because I imagine they'll probably sneak him up those rankings and then try and
Try
off
and get
the
him in the back
mandatory.
door. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. While we're actually on the PBC subject, we'll just talk about this just now. It was supposed to come later on the show, but PBC UK kind of went off the grid, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they must be out signing fighters. So, there's whispers about Isaac Chamberlain signing with them, already having signed with them.
Did you say Isaac Chamberlain signed with them? I didn't know this.
No, there's whispers about that.
Oh, right.
It's not confirmed, but yeah, there's whispers about that and that would probably make sense given, how he's been towards it, Matchroom and
he's been really poorly matched. So, after the Lawrence Okoli fight, he's been kind of like tossed out in the trash, and it's a shame because anytime you see that lad speak on IFL or you see him speaking at all, he's a really, really nice boy. He's a really nice guy.
Nice.
He doesn't deserve to be treated like an afterthought. Fighting against Lawrence Okoli took balls, and all right, he might have lost, but that wasn't the be all and end all. Lawrence.
No, and there was a lot going on then with Ted Bammy and everything else, and now he's down in Sutton with Angel Fernandez, and he was an entertaining fight against Luke Watkins, and I think he's one of those guys that people can get behind, and he's got a name enough. He's headlined O2 card. So he'd be kind of a logical signing for them, and there's been talk in London that he's signed with them. Chris Eubank Jr. has obviously signed with them, so Chris Eubank Jr. against Martin Murray has been muted, which is a fight that nobody would want to see. I think they just probably out there building their stable.
Yeah, well, I'll put this one to you: is there a better time in British boxing to be a free agent?
No, I don't think that, there's 3 big promotional outfits with PBC as well. There's so much money in boxing at the moment with the US TV networks, the imminent arrival of DAZN in the UK, which will probably be in the next few years. Got BT Sports, Sky Sports, ITV, there's lots of platforms. So I don't think there is a better time. If you're a good fighter, that's the thing. If you're a good fighter, that it's a great time to be there, in British boxing as a free agent.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with this. I think that the guys that are in the strongest positions aren't the guys that's tied down to these big services and big platforms. The guys that's in the strongest position is these good fighters that don't have a platform and they aren't aligned to any promoter. These guys, they're worth their weight in gold just now because, as we're seeing with Terence Crawford, there's nobody for him to fight. So see a guy like Danny Garcia, who's with PBC. Danny Garcia is worth more as a free agent as what he is with PBC because the PBC do not need Danny Garcia. Just exactly. Taking it into that kind of thing. As a free agent, Danny Garcia could go away and him and his dad could negotiate a deal and they take everything. They don't need to cut Al Heyman in on it, And
would you let Angel negotiate anything for you?
Fuck, I wouldn't let Angel negotiate my fucking shoelaces. He couldn't be trusted. Fucking some of the stuff he comes away with. I don't like his dad, but Danny Garcia. I'm not going back to Danny, but I think Danny's a perfect example. Probably
okay.
even.
I'll give you a Scottish one. Cash Farouk.
Cash Farouk, my favourite prospect in the UK right now. He's, a matter of fact, Cash Farouk is fighting on TV at 11 o'clock in Scotland. I don't know, he'll be fighting. You'll get it on BBC Scotland. This podcast will only be uploaded in time for that, so I don't know why I'm telling you. But anyway, I love Cash Farouk. Great wee fighter. Great. And I says to my friends at work today, when that boy wins that British title outright, he's going to have a selection of promoters to go with. It's not always going to be Matchroom.
As his chief fan, and let's say you'd be his advisor, where would he tell him to go?
Where would I tell him to go? Well, as we spoke about, you've got this PBC UK. Now, you go to Matchroom, you're just another face, another prospect, another thing. You go to somebody like PBC UK, they are going to go, we have got the fucking British champion, a guy that's going to go for the European and Commonwealth titles. We've got this guy, and they will give you every bit of marketing that they can muster,
exactly.
behind them. And that's what you've got to think of, because at the end of the day, it's all about exposure. And it's how much exposure are you going to get? How much exposure is Cash Farouk going to get if Josh Kelly's on the same card? He's going to get nothing. But you go to PBC UK or you go to PBC or you go, I mean, it doesn't have to be that. It could be like Mick Conlon, who just went straight to Top Rank in America. You could go and build a name for yourself. And I mean, Cash Farouk has got the advantage that he's, I mean, we class him as Scottish, but he's also Pakistani as well. Cash Farouk has got that crossover. And, you know, the communities, the same way Amir Khan, and we've seen it before, you know, these people really get out, these communities get out and support. So you've got the crossover. That lad has got everything. He's got all the potential and everything in his favour to become a real household name. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, PBC, it's an interesting one, though, because off the names, there aren't a huge amount that are, you know, that you could sign. So what they probably have to do is go out and sign guys like Shakam Hitters, Cash Farouk, you know, guys that are pretty established.
Yeah, man. Well, see, the thing is, it's like we've got Cash Farouk now. In Scotland, our TV stations do not pick up boxing at all, especially since the Mike Towell disaster.
Yeah, of course.
That was on, I think that was on STV or BBC Scotland. And after that, we didn't really see anything. Now we're starting to see Cash. That's a couple of Cash's fights, and it's only Cash's fights. You know, it comes. The show's coming on at 11 and it finishes at 12. So we're not getting any undercard. It's just to see Cash. We had Craig Scott. Apparently, I think Craig was on BBC Radio Scotland tonight. Speaking about it. Yeah, I've not heard it yet, but I'm looking forward to catching up on it because, you know, I love Craig. He's fucking lovely guy, very talented writer. As a matter of fact, a bit like yourself. If nobody knows, like you're a really good, you know, up there.
Thank you. I mean, I was actually messaging him just before we were chatting because he was just looking at something I've written. So I'll share that. Later. But it's about whether trainers, whether former boxers make better trainers or whether he has any advantage. And for that piece, I spoke to Don Charles, Angel Fernandez, who's Isaac Chamberlain's trainer, and Gary Logan, who used to be a part of Davis Hay camp. So I spoke to them all about that, and that should be coming out in a few days, so it should be an interesting one.
Yeah, man, that sounds fantastic, man.
Craig's a brilliant writer, and exactly.
He's very innovative, Craig. You know, if that's the word.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of comes at things from a different angle. You know, he's a great guy. You know, met him down in London. Met another jock down in London. So, you know, we got to speak Jockinese. And nobody else got to know what we were saying. No, but Craig's a lovely guy. He's a lovely boy. And I see he's kind of doing a bit of work with Gloves Red boys. And I mean, they're great as well. You know, I listen to their stuff. I read their stuff. Fantastic. If anybody wants to check it out, definitely check it out. But do you know what? We've actually talked this Whyte Rivas thing to death, and we've only got 20 more minutes left that we can actually put this podcast out. So let's just jump quickly onto a fight that none of us expected to happen. Not one person predicted this fight was going to happen, but it now looks like it's set in stone, and it's Joyce versus Dubois. What do you think of this fight? Did you see it coming?
I mean, I didn't, so I'd be lying if I did. There's still one person doesn't see it coming. That's Sam O'Reilly, Fight Talk.
Fucking pessimist. I hate pessimists.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, it's an interesting fight, and it's also interesting that Joyce has signed with Frank Warren. What makes it interesting why he's signed with Frank Warren is because you would have thought that the PBC would have wanted to build him up to fight against Joshua. Sorry, not against Joshua, against Wilder at some point. But yeah, I think it's a fight that neither fighter really needed to take. You know, the British Boxing Board of Control often calls these mandatories that nobody really
it's kind of like a wish list rather than a ordered.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And very rarely we ever see the ones that we want to see. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Very rarely that when they make these wish lists that we go, that's not happening. You can write that off. You can write that. That's fucked. You know. But the fact that this fight, when I went on, I was so excited. And do you know what? I was laughing I was laughing at your Anthony Joshua's, your Tyson Furies, and your Deontay Wilders. Like, do you know what? Fuck yous. And this is a fight that this is a fight that, well, especially here in Britain, maybe only here in Britain, this is a fight that we're all buzzing for. This is a great fight. And you know what? These young guys, these guys, well, no young guys, because Joe Joyce isn't that young, but Daniel Dubois is young. It's like, and they're showing them up. This is a fight that they're not cowering away for. This is a fight that fans want, and we're going to get it. I'm buzzing about this.
Yeah, it's great because it also shows that we don't have to marinate these fights forever and then they just never happened. Like Hellbrook against Amir Khan's a good example. It's just good to see these guys just getting on, and whoever loses this fight still has a good chance of, challenging for world honours, because both of them will learn a lot more than they will learn from knocking out, tomato cans, and both of them will just, they'll get the exposure they need, the big build up. To me, it's a bit like De Gale against Groves.
I was just going to say that.
Exactly.
It's not detrimental to your career if you lose or you win. All it means is one of these can be fast tracked, the other one's got a bit more learning to do. It's no the end of the world. I spoke about this a few times on the pod, but I met Alex Arthur. I love Alex Arthur. Alex Arthur was fantastic for Scottish boxing. He was a wave before Ricky Burns came in and got a lot more people into the sport. Alex Arthur says to me, in an interview, it's on YouTube, Alex Arthur sitting in, and he says to me, he's like, you learn more for your L's than you do for your wins. He's like, 10 times more. He's like,
Exactly.
So see if Joyce goes out and gets beat off Dubois, or even if Joyce beats Dubois, Daniel Dubois is not going to disappear and just forget and hate boxing. Daniel Dubois is going to know what it's like to lose, and he's going to go out and make sure, see what he did wrong, and maybe never do it again. The same with Joe Joyce. Maybe not so much with Joe Joyce because he's a bit older and he has to kind of, push on a bit faster than what he has. But, Alex Arthur hit the nail on the head. He's like, you can go out there and you can beat these guys. If you beat somebody that you're better than, you're not learning. See if you can go out there and you fight somebody at an equal level and you can beat them, or they beat you, then at least you've stood at that level. At least you've been at that level, you've mixed it at that level, and you know what, if they beat you, he was talking to me actually about the Gomez fight, but he's saying, I can go out there and beat, or get beat off of him, and he's put me through a war, then I'll come out that fight a better fighter than what I went into that fight, and I love that attitude. I've always loved that about Alex Arthur, that when he says that to me.
Yeah, and it's about testing. Are you the best? These are two guys that have sparred against each other, I'm sure, in Team GB setup, both, well-schooled amateurs. Both of the teams think they can win, otherwise they wouldn't have accepted this risk. And, it's a fight that we'd rather see than the Gorman against Dubois fight. So, it's a really interesting fight. And, imagine if Dubois, at this age, beats Joe Joyce. We'll all get really excited about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Frank Warren for making this fight. Once it gets announced, I'll be 100%, sure that it's happening, but 99% in boxing.
Yeah, but while Eddie Hearn's head's been turned to America and he's been putting on absolute shit over here, when Eddie Hearn's head's been turned to America, this is what fucking Frank Warren should have been doing. See if Frank Warren was doing this 12 months ago, then nobody would be caring about Matchroom and Sky Sports. But the fact is, British boxing has been into a regression, it's been into a stalewart, and all these fans that we won off the back of Amir Khan and your ages, we're starting to lose them now because the stuff that we're putting on is just shit. And this is one of these fights, it breaks through that. It makes so much sense. I put this out on Twitter. This is a fantastic matchup. It makes so much sense. But this is why we're all so shocked that it get made. And I mean, that's a fucking terrible indictment on boxing, that we're shocked that a good matchup gets made.
I genuinely think it's a crossover fight, and that it's going to be something that people are going to be talking about at work and everywhere else. And people are going to be, these two young heavyweights and, one former Olympic silver medalist or Olympic silver medalist against, former Team GB members coming together. And it's just one of those fights that I think everybody will be excited about it. And people already on Twitter talking about coming down to London to watch the fights and actually making the journey. And after, Eubank De Gale is probably the best fight that we're going to have in Britain, all this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for all you people that you would never have known, but I had to nip out for a toilet break. But let's just move on to the previews and let's talk about a cracking fight, and it's Estrada versus Rungvisai. Just how good a fight is this, Riku? How can you put this into words? For me, it's fantastic, man.
Yeah, it's a great fight, and the first fight was a cracker. And it shows two fighters that have lost before, willing to face the best, and that's all that boxing fans care about.
The styles. No, we can't get away from the styles. No, I'm a big fan of Sor Rungvisai, but Sor Rungvisai is raw. He's strong, and he's kind of King Kong-like, he'll just walk through to land. And I think Chocolatito found that out to his own detriment. And Estrada found that out the first 6 rounds in the last fight. But Estrada being the more cultured fighter, I'm getting the feeling this may be a wee bit like Andre Ward Kovalev too, where Andre Ward had seen the best of Kovalev and knew exactly how to beat him in the second fight, and he did. He went out and executed it superbly. I'm kind of getting the feeling that Estrada knows exactly how to beat Rungvisai this time, and I cannot see past the guy. I think Estrada's going to do it this time.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one as well. It's just a case of, whether what's left of Rungvisai after all these years as a fighter, so not in terms of age, but just his style. He might not be the same guy as he was the last time they fought against each other, and that losing that bit of speed, not wanting to take as much punishment. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just got schooled and we would have seen the end of him there.
Yeah, I always remember my father always telling me, it was my dad, my dad's blind, but my dad loved Muhammad Ali when he was a boy, and my dad always told me, it's something got me into boxing, as a fan. My dad always told me, he's like, hungry fighters that have to fight for the food, guys that have had to do that in their life, he's like, they're always the hardest, they're always, because they know what it's like, what it means to lose. And Sor Rungvisai used to live out of bins, eat rats. You can never write a guy like that off. And his style, no matter how Estrada comes to deal with it, he's going to have a lot to cope with, because he just likes to walk right through punishment to land his own. He's happy to take a punch, to land a punch. Now, fighting a guy like that, I mean, that makes him very, very awkward and dangerous for Estrada.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, what can Estrada do differently, I think there's a lot, but what can Rungvisai do differently? There isn't that much, and that's going to be, I think, the difference in the fight. And as you said, he's a better school boxer. I think both of those guys are hungry. Both of them have lost, and, any fight that comes from Mexico and has, 40-plus fights like Estrada, he will have the will to win, and I think he'll probably just edge a very close points decision.
Yeah, I think you've actually just hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Rungvisai comes to fight the way he fights. He can't change that. We've seen it. We love it. But he can't change it. That's how he fights. Whereas Estrada, I mean, to call him a Mexican fighter is maybe a bit harsh because you've got that Mexican style. But Estrada's a very skilled fighter. And anybody that maybe writing Estrada off has never actually sat and watched him other than the Rungvisai fight, because he got off to a slow start. He was overwhelmed in the first half of the fight, but the second half of the fight, Estrada had worked him out and he'd seen all his triggers. Now, Estrada knows that going into this fight, and I just don't see any way that Estrada loses, really, unless he maybe lost something in that fight. Unless there's something been lost outside the ring, maybe his reflexes are slowed down, but usually these little guys give us a good night of entertainment. That's what I love about this division. And I mean, it's a fantastic fight to make up. The best fight of the year so far. Better than Canelo Jacobs, if you ask me. But I think that Estrada's going to show his real quality. He's going to make the the changes they had to make, especially in the first half of the fight. And I'm just debating with myself whether he's going to get the stoppage or not. And I think he might even get a late stoppage between 10 and 12 as Saw Rungvisai maybe runs out of gas a little bit.
Yeah, that could be the case, certainly. But yeah, I agree. It's probably the best fight that has been made this year. Yeah, it's just good. It's boxing porn, as they say.
Yeah, I always say that one as well. But we'll try and get this keep going. We're making good momentum here. You know what I mean, Riku? So let's jump on to the World Boxing Super Series. Regis Prograis versus Kirill Relic. I mean, I've seen Relic fight. I've seen him absolutely destroy Ricky Burns and get robbed in Glasgow. I've always liked Relic since then. He get robbed again against Bartholomew, and he went back and won it after it was ordered a rematch. I like Relic. He's a grafter. He's nothing special, but you know, he's one of them guys like Ricky Burns with limited ability that makes the most of it. But Regis Prograis, I've spoke to this boy, I've interviewed him. Regis Prograis is a special talent, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a special talent, and he isn't a young fighter either. I mean, time isn't on his side, but you know, he's since he's turned pro, you know, he's had a spotless career. He's got a few good wins as well. Terry Flanagan probably being the one that most fans will know. You know, he's beaten Dongo.
Yeah, he absolutely destroyed Ndongo. You know, see, that's where the fight I interviewed him was. Who was it? I think he was supposed to fight Postol. And yes. Postol pulled out through injury and he got Ndongo. Now, me being a fucking foolish idiot that knows nothing, I actually says to him in the interview, you've probably got a better opponent in Ndongo than Postol because the way Ndongo absolutely destroyed Ricky Burns. Yeah. And he went out there and absolutely wiped the floor with Julius Ndongo. And then obviously we've seen Victor Postol against Josh Taylor, the guy that's got so much left in the gas tank. You know, he's not finished by any means of the imagination, you know. So it just shows you how much I know.
Yeah, but I think it's back to the previous fight that Relic can't adapt in any way. He's a good fighter, but I don't think he can do anything differently, whereas Prograis has levels, and he always strikes me as the type of guy, as the opposition gets better, he gets better, and this is a fight that he'll be motivated for. And the money these guys can make, you know, by winning the World Boxing Super Series is great money. And, you know, him against Josh Taylor, hopefully in the final, you know, what a fight that would be.
I actually have it on my YouTube channel. Regis Prograis, before he was in this Super Series, like talking about coming over the UK, coming over to Scotland and fighting Josh Taylor because he likes Josh Taylor, he's a fan of Josh Taylor. And I says this to Josh Taylor, you know, Regis Prograis likes his style, he would love to come over here, and this is what Prograis was saying to me. And, you know, Regis Prograis is just one of these lads. You see him in the ring, he looks like a killer, you know, he's fucking, you know, he one of these guys that looks like a bit of a badass. Some of the American fighters have got it. And you speak to him and the boy he's a lovely lad, you know, he's really... You know, he could pretty much tell him you could call him anytime, you know, you can eat all that kind of stuff, and you know, he's so approachable. He's not, put it this way, I interviewed somebody like Barry McGuigan, who is a prick. You know, yeah, he's a prick. You know, like, I would never, any aspiring boxing writer or whatever, don't ever
give your money. Don't give your money to him.
Yeah, just fuck Barry McGuigan. He's a fucking media whore. That's what he is. Barry McGuigan's the kind of guy that asks you how many views you get and how many likes you get or whatever before he agrees to be interviewed. He's a prick. He's a user. But away from that, back to Regis Prograis. Regis Prograis is the kind of boy at the other side of the spectrum. He's a lovely lad. He's a good boxer. He's come through a lot, you know. I mean, Regis Prograis moved... I think he moved to Texas after the Hurricane Katrina, and you know, his family was washed out. They had nothing. They moved to Texas. That's how he ended up in with the Charlos. And you know, that's what he says. He was telling us about. He was always fighting like the bigger boys, you know, and they were the Charlo brothers, and you know, he'd always hold his own. And I was like, well, see if you can hold your own with them too, because I really rate the Charlos. If you can hold your own, then you've got something. And see if you're coming through that kind of destitute. You know, you've lost absolutely everything. then again, back to that thing that my dad told me, hungry
Hungry
fighters
yeah.
fighters are the most dangerous fighters. And could the power of Regis Prograis in the final, because could Josh Taylor come unstuck against him?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. If you think about Josh Taylor and that Postal fight, the scoring was abysmal. You know,
Yeah,
Prograis
I was there that
levels
night.
above. Yeah, Prograis levels above Postal, or what was left of Postal that night. So, you know, Josh Taylor's going to have to take it up a notch. But I think Josh Taylor's a special fight as well. But that's a genuine 50-50 fight, and that would be, if that fight was in UK, it would be an unbelievable fight to go and watch live.
Yeah, well, I'd say like Regis Prograis, I don't think he's under any illusions about being a ticket seller, but he was quite open to coming here and fighting, you know. And I think if you're going to get the fairest crack of a whip in the Super Series, is your best bet. I mean, the judging in the Super Series has been pretty much spot on.
Yeah.
But as you said about that Victor Postol fight, I mean, I was there that night. I'd just come back from London for when I'd met you. And I come back from London. I was on my way up on the train, and Billy Nelson phoned us. He says, he's like, we've got a couple of tickets here. He's like, if you want to come. I was like, all right. So I went and met Billy, and then we went, and oh man, I was like, do you know what? See, for about maybe 6 rounds, Josh was taking a pasting, and I think it was in the 9th round he got a knockdown, and I had him needing that knockdown if he was going to win on the cards. He needed that knockdown. Now the cards were deplorable, but on my card he still won. But it was a hell of a lot closer, and I think Regis Prograis would have watched that fight and goes like, yeah, you know what, I'll have some of that. I don't think that Josh Taylor that night, I mean, I love Josh Taylor, but I don't think that night that we seen that Josh Taylor's human. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I was just saying. I was like, I mean, for that Victor Postol fight, Josh Taylor didn't install any fear into anybody that night.
No. And, you know, Postel's an awkward guy because he's so tall and rangy, but, you know, Josh Taylor, if he would have just boxed the game plan, after 6 rounds, but it felt like he ran out of a bit of steam. He probably didn't have the concentration, but I think he learned a lot from that fight, and we'll see how that he takes those learnings, hopefully, to a Prograis fight at the very least.
Well, I actually did that. I interviewed Josh. Before his last fight in the Super Series, and I says to Josh, did you underestimate him? And he assured me that he didn't. But what he thinks was the problem was when he was in London, obviously it comes down to Shane. In London, he was staying in hotels. He's like, I was staying in between, so every couple of weeks I was changing hotel, and he says it just wasn't, he was never settled. He was always up in the air. And now I totally believe it. I was like, because I mean, as you know, I've came to London to work, and I stay away from home to work quite a lot and do 6-week trips. I do 12-hour shifts, and it really does. It gets to you when you don't feel settled. I can totally believe that. So I'm willing to give Josh Taylor a bye for that. I think if they were training,
where's he training now?
He's still in London, but he's bought a flat in London, which is his own flat, and he takes a dog down to London. Yeah, he takes a dog. So he's home comforts. You know, there's a big difference for that. You know, I mean, I've as I said, when we met, I was in London working. I was working 86 hours a week. You never really feel settled because you're not home. You'll probably feel that now, or well, you'll know, especially because you're from Finland. You stay in London and you go home. You never really feel settled when you're not in your own area. So I can imagine preparations for a fight would be, you know, there's every chance that Josh had underprepared, or just his head wasn't completely on it.
Yeah, and it's one of those. I think it's one of those learning things that you learn throughout your career, where Josh learned that, you know, that you have to have those home comforts, and he's adjusted. So he's done the right thing, and you'd rather do that at that stage of your career rather than before title fight.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm just going through the list of stuff that we had to speak about tonight, and we've got one more thing to go back to, and it's what constitutes a quit. Now, I have very strong feelings on this, so I'm going to let you go first, Riku, and then I'll come in with mine. So what, to you, constitutes a quit in the ring?
I think it's when you opt to, you know, end the fight because you don't think you can win. If it's that you can't, you know, you're saving your career or your health. So like Hellbrook against Errol Spence, then I wouldn't call it a quit. But if it's sort of, I'm doing this because I can't win, which I felt Khan was doing, then I think you are quitting a fight. That's my opinion.
I will probably go a bit stronger on this. And, because I think there's different levels of quit. I think that Kell Brook's quit is probably more acceptable than Amir Khan's. But, I mean, people say, well, what the fuck do you know? You're not in the ring, you're not sitting there fighting. But what I would say is, like, guys like Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier was fighting Muhammad Ali in the Thriller Manila. He was blind in one eye. He was adamant that he was going out for the last round. He was adamant he was going out for the last round. And, sorry, 2 seconds. 2 seconds, Riku. He was adamant he was going out for the last round. He couldn't see in one eye. He was quite happy to go out, and his corner pulled him out. Now, that to me, that's not a quit. That guy was willing to put his health and life in jeopardy and put it above all else in the ring. Now, when you're talking about guys like Amir Khan, he wasn't willing to put his health at risk in there. Got to a point where his health or whatever he was taking in the ring had became, it became too much. You go, I would much rather gear up just now and live my life. Whereas these guys that never quit, these guys that have no got a quit in them, who can we say, but in the Thriller Manila, either man, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, the punishment that they put each other through in that fight, and don't get me wrong, both of them were ready to throw in the towel in the last round. Just so happened that Joe Frazier done it first. Muhammad Ali had told Angelo Dundee to cut the rings off, cut his gloves off. He had nothing else to give. I think that if you let guys like Amir Khan away with this and say that it's not a quit, then it disrespects anything that these other guys have gave before. Some of these guys that fight with dislocated shoulders, broken jaws, dislocated fucking retinas. You've had guys like you've had guys through boxing history that's fought well above and beyond. And I just don't. That's how I can't agree with Amir Khan saying that it wasn't a quit. Well, it was a quit.
Yeah, it was definitely a quit, and I think.
And any mortal human being would quit. If I was sitting there in that position, I'd say, you know what, fuck this, it's not worth it. But these guys that go above and beyond, they didn't quit. And that's how you have to respect them by saying anybody that chucks it and puts their health before a fight, then you go like, right, I understand, but you did quit. You had the option to carry on. You could have carried on, but you didn't. You chose not to.
Yeah, and I think there's a duty of care for trainers as well. So if a guy is fighting and they put in their health on the line, then a trainer should wave the towel. A bit like, Dom Ingle did against Golovkin for Kell Brook.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a good trainer should do. I think the tricky part is that it's the mental thing that some fighters are willing to be knocked out cold, whereas other fighters are willing to, they'll take I wouldn't say the easy route out, but like Khan did this weekend, where he'll just find a way to, quit the fight and then claim that he didn't quit. It's a really tricky subject. I don't think sometimes you just know you can't win, and I think a trainer needs to save their fight as well. So I think as much needs to be laid on trainers to know their fighter, ensure that their health is safe, because they are the safety net for any fighter in those situations where they're too brave to protect themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what your corner's for, and that's what the referee's for. He's there to they're there to take the decision out of your hands. Now, Virgil Hunter obviously thought that Khan could have kept going. Khan didn't want to be in there, and you know what? Fucking, you can't criticise him, because
didn't Virgil wave it off? To my understanding.
Well, see, before I just thought before I actually just kind of seen up to the low blow, and I was just, because I kind of knew, I'd watched it afterwards. I seen the low blow, seen the kind of stoppage in the corner, and I was like, right, that's how it finished. I didn't actually see after it.
I think Virgil said no, the fight, Khan just said, the referee was saying, are you ready? And he kept on saying no, if I remember correctly. And then Virgil said, should I call this off? And Khan didn't say anything. And he asked him a few times, and then Virgil sort of waved it off. And then Khan was sort of acting surprised. And I think that was Khan's way of absolving himself from the blame, rather than saying, I quit or I can't continue. Because I think he was implying they can't continue, but Virgil said something, to the doctor, the ringside doctor or the referee, to kind of absolve him a bit from that blame.
Yeah, I think Amir Khan served the purpose. He came in the ring, he was getting pretty much beaten on. It was only getting worse. And I think Amir came into survival mode, and he didn't want to have another Canelo Alvarez type knockout. But, I'm quite harsh when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, I'm Scottish. Ken Buchanan, the best Scottish fighter ever. Ken Buchanan, fantastic fighter, greatest ever for our country. And I say that Ken Buchanan quit against Roberto Duran. No, don't get me wrong, Roberto Duran did knee him in the plums. But I believe that Ken Buchanan also says that, no, he couldn't continue. No, the fact that he says he couldn't continue, then takes him out of that bracket of your Joe Frazier's and these absolute warriors who will go in there to die. Pretty much nobody's getting him out there unless they're going out in a stretcher. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be like that. It's smart not to be like that. But then again, at the end of the day, you're disrespecting these guys that do that by saying that Amir Khan didn't quit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, for me, what annoys me is when fighters then, deny so heavily that they've quit, or, make up excuses like Khan that I thought I didn't know I had 5 minutes when the ref told him that he has 5 minutes. Or Virgil said they had 5 minutes.
I couldn't believe that. I thought that was bizarre. This is Amir Khan, the Olympic silver medalist. Amir Khan, who's a seasoned pro. Amir Khan, who's held world titles. And he's trying to tell me that the simplest sport in the world, boxing, there's not a lot of rules to remember. And Amir Khan saying that he didn't know that he had 5 minutes to recover. That's a bit of a fucking,
I agree.
It's like you're reaching a bit there. You're seeing an excuse to go out and you go out. I can't blame him. You can't blame him because that's him just showing that he's a mortal human being. You put your health before a fucking paycheck any day of the week. And he's seen a way to get out and he got out of there.
I think the later fighters' careers get, and if they take a lot of punishment early in their career, you don't often see very young fighters quitting fights, do you? Apart from O'Hara Davis. But apart from that, you don't often see younger fighters, quitting. And it's the older guys that have kids and families and, they think about the long term.
That's completely understandable.
That's when you probably have to retire, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before. I mean, the most famous one, and I'm not saying that Amir Khan's on this level, was Roberto Duran, one of the all-time greats at boxing, the No Mas, the infamous No Mas, No More. That was, Roberto Duran, when left Panama a hero and returned an absolute villain, because in the Panamanian psyche, you're not allowed to quit. He should have just got knocked out.
I think
I'm not saying that Amir Khan was
mental.
I'm not saying
mental thing.
That's a lowest level of quitting, but there's different levels. I mean, I believe Kell Brook quit against Errol Spence because he had the option to go on. Now people say, he had a fractured eye socket, but you sit there and say, well, fucking Joe Frazier was fighting Muhammad Ali and he could only see through one eye, and that one eye had swollen shut. So, and he never quit. So you've got to respect what these other guys have done beforehand, and that's always my belief in it, but everybody's different. Everybody's got their own opinions on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of top boxing's kind of hardest subjects to discuss, because it's something that we're discussing which we couldn't humanly do, and that makes it so hard. And obviously, with all the history of boxing and the pain that some of these champions have gone through to win fights. Remember when Chris Algieri fought against Prodovnikov? Yeah. And he had that eye and it looked horrible, and he still continued. And I think the ringside doctor came in a few times and said, I'm going to call you up. And he said, no, I want to continue. And that's the kind of thing, I think you have the hunger when you want to be a champion, or when making a name for yourself. Whereas, once you've been on top of the mountain, it's not as easy to not quit. And Duran had been top of the mountain at that point, and Sugar Ray Leonard was embarrassing him. And I think that's the reason he really quit, was because he felt so embarrassed, and he just felt getting trained properly, and he just thought, I don't want to be humiliated. Little did he know that that was the biggest tarnish on his career.
There was a fight that I put on the DJ Boxing website on Casuals Corner, like a classic fight, and it was Provodnikov again against Timothy Bradley. Now,
great fight.
I had heard an interview with Timothy Bradley afterwards, and this is why Timothy Bradley, his wife made him retire. He didn't want to retire, but he says for the next 3 months after that fight, he had to learn to speak again. He couldn't speak. His brain was that badly damaged.
Yeah,
and I mean,
severely concussed.
No, he held in there in that fight, and he saw it out, and you know what, he got the result, and that's the one fight that made I love Timothy Bradley from that. That's where I got all my respect for him for. And you sit there and go, like, how can you put your body through all that where you're in a state where you have to learn to speak again, your hands are broke, you don't know who anybody is, you know, for days after it, he didn't know who his wife and that was, and that all come back to him. But you're sitting there going, like, no, that's somebody that didn't quit. No, who's to say that quitting is a bad thing? You know, if that's the kind of state, but to say that somebody didn't quit, that kind of makes them a bit superhuman. It makes like that kind of stuff that they did a wee bit extra, you know, rather than what Amir Khan did, and he seen a way out and he took it.
Well, Bradley in that one, do you think that would have happened if he would have got all the accolades he would have hoped for?
Nope.
After the Pacquiao fight, because in that same interview,
Timothy Bradley went in there and he was fighting the media, he was fighting against all his critics, and you know, I think that I heard an interview, it was with Everlast Talkbox, I don't know if you can still get it in iTunes, but it was fantastic. It's Timothy Bradley, he just goes right into it, it's an hour long, and it was, honestly, it's one of the best things you could ever listen to. And that's what his wife says. She's like, listen, I'm not going through this again, you're not going back in. He still wanted to fight on. She says, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, his wife kind of goes like that. It's like, I can't see you in that kind of state again where you can't even communicate. And you go, that's what fucking these guys are giving in the ring for us to sit there and watch, you know.
Exactly. But should we do have you seen anything decent recently?
Well, Riku, I have not seen anything decent because this week I was actually just trying to catch up in the boxing, so I'm going to pass the must-see over to you. What have you seen?
Was it Champs, that documentary that I was talking to you about? Is it called Champs? Yeah, it's called Champs. It's a 1.5-hour documentary. You've got Bernard Hopkins.
Mike Tyson
and Evander Holyfield.
Evander Holyfield, that's right. Yeah,
great documentary. They talk about, you know, how they got into boxing, their careers, life after boxing, all the financial side, and dealing with promoters and having people manage your money. It's really in-depth interviews.
Yeah, and you kind of get the Bernard Hopkins, he kind of comes across as that badass he actually is. He's a fucking horrible, he just seems like an absolute horrible guy, you know.
But he talks about his time in prison and how that changed his life. But they go through everybody's lives in chronological order. So, you know, they all sort of how their childhood was, and they talk about that, and you know how they got into boxing and how they started their career, and you know all the way up to the top and everything else. And then in the end, it's a bit sad because neither any of them, well, aside from Bernard Hopkins, doesn't have anything left. And then Hopkins talks quite a bit about why he got involved with Golden Boy and the initial reception of that, and you know how fighters were screwed over and everything else. So yeah, that was a really good documentary. It's called Champs.
Yeah, but that's superb. As I said, when you messaged me, I'd seen that a while ago. I thought, I remember that actually. But it was but just something to throw in there. It's not something I've actually seen this week or that, but it was a book I'd read a good few years ago now, and it's Sugar Ray Robinson autobiography, I'm sure it is. And this guy's stories are unbelievable, man. You know, when he's sitting there telling you stories about when him and Joe Lewis were doing national service together, and their addiction was Coca-Cola. You know, they were addicted, and they used to plant Coca-Cola for each other, and you know, and that's what, like one of the things in one of the chapters in the book, Joe Lewis finds his stash of Coca-Cola, so he ends up having him a square go, and he's like, for like 10 seconds I held my own with the heavyweight champion of the world before Joe Lewis finally like kind of battered him, you know. And it's like, it's just these stories like that, like, it's fantastic to hear. And I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson, obviously like, the greatest fighter ever. You know,
Yeah,
greatest
definitely.
fighter in history, you know, fantastic. Everybody, like, you go to the legacy of Ali, yeah, he's fantastic as a human being, but as just stripping it back to being a boxer, nobody comes close to Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to look through his record and, you know, how frequently he fought. And,
Oh,
he's
I
just
mean, he fought
made
Jake
of-
LaMotta twice in a month.
I know, he's just
You
made
know,
of,
that's
different
insane.
stock.
And he had a fight in between that. You know, he fought Jake LaMotta. I think he got beat. He had a fight in between, and then at the end of the month, he fought Jake LaMotta. And the rematch, you're sitting there like that's it's like unheard of. Now we're lucky. We find ourselves an active fighter fights every 6 or 7 months.
I mean, we're waiting for Tyson Fury against Wilder to probably 2021, it seems. So,
Oh, fuck, man. It's not even worth talking about. They're all a waste of space. I can't be bothered with them. But Riku, thanks very much for coming on. I know you're on holiday. I know I've stole a good 2 hours of your time. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your time with your family, mate. It's been brilliant having you on, and I mean, us two can talk some amount of shite.
yeah, we do.
Right, but thanks very much for coming on, mate. Thanks for listening to anybody that's listening, and give us a rating in iTunes and all the rest of it. Right, cheers now. Bye.
Cheers.